Hello guys, welcome back. I'm Eloise. So today we're talking about a few samples that I have and I've been testing from an Italian perfume house called Mendittorosa. It's a house that I recently discovered and don't really have much experience with. Someone mentioned Sogno Reale being really nice, and when I ordered a sample, a decant of Sogno Reale, I added 2 others just based on a few things that I read. So I have here a decant sample of Sogno Reale, Rituale, and Orlo. And I have to say that these 3 really caught my attention, and I really have to control myself from buying 2 full bottles of 2 out of the 3. I'm absolutely enjoying them and was really eager to make a video and talk about them. So the House of Mendittorosa was founded in 2012 by an Italian woman by the name of Stefania Squeglia, and they're located in Naples, which is interesting for me personally because my father's side of the family, my father is from Naples and my family is still in Naples actually, and I grew up going to Naples. So the house is based in Naples, and the founder and the creative person behind all of the fragrances is Stefania Squeglia, but there are different perfumers for each of the perfumes that come from the house. So there are basically 2 collections in the House of Mendittorosa. You have the Odori d'Anima collection, which translates to Scents of the Soul, and you have the Talismans collection. And not only are the fragrances super creative, the bottles that they come in are absolutely spectacular and really, really unique. And they come in these little wooden crates that are sort of reminiscent and remind me of the way that artwork is packaged. So the story behind each of the fragrances are very interesting. The bottles are really unique and the packaging is unique as well. I don't own a full bottle, but I look forward to getting one. So now let's talk about what these 3 smell like. So let's start with Sogno Reale, which I sprayed here about an hour ago, but we'll spray it on the test strip and talk about what this smells like. Sogno Reale is described as a citrus aromatic fragrance. It was released in 2015. It opens up really citrusy and bright. There's lemon, there's bergamot in here. But not long after the opening, you get these ambery touches. And this fragrance is essentially, to my nose, a leathery, smooth, suede, leather-like fragrance. Even though there's no leather note in here, I get a leather with some citrus touches and a very interesting marine note. Now the thing is, I never liked marine notes in fragrances. It's not something that I've ever been interested in, and I had no idea that there was a marine note in this one. Someone recommended Sogno Reale specifically and said it was a beautiful fragrance. And by the title, which translates to realistic dream, it basically caught my attention. But I did not know that there was a sea note in here. But despite there being this aquatic sea note that I do detect in the fragrance, I absolutely love it, and I think it works really well with this smooth leather note that I'm getting in here. And there are some ambery touches as well. I would say that it comes off earthy, and you have this sea note that's in the background that's not too prominent. It just kind of peeks through and is floating in the background, but the most prominent part of the fragrance is this ambery leather texture that the fragrance portrays. And there's also something a little incensey and a little balsamic and a little spiced, but it's all blended together so well to create this fragrance that feels that you're wearing an ambery leather / suede, really smooth, earthy fragrance that has these touches of marine notes that peek through. They're not super prominent, but I definitely detect them. And they work, surprisingly, they work really well together with this leather note that I'm getting here. And if you look on the official website for this fragrance, there's a recording of Stefania speaking about the creation and the inspiration of Sogno Reale, and also mention of the notes in the fragrance. So she explains that this fragrance was born from a dream. She had a dream about lemon and leather and sea urchin, and then went to the lab in Paris, and they attempted about 9 times to capture a fragrance that would be representative of this dream that she had. And all 9 times failed. And I'm not sure now if it's the 9th time or the 10th time that was successful. but there was a successful rendition of this dream that involved the lemon and the leather and the sea urchin, and that was bottled in a flacon, as she explains it in her voice recording on the official website, which I think is really cool. And there is something ethereal and cozy about the fragrance. On one side, there's this freshness that it has with the citrus and with that aquatic element to the fragrance. And on the other side is this really cozy, smooth leather. And I detected the leather in here way before I went on the official website, way before I read the notes, and way before I listened to Stefania's voice recording explaining the inspiration behind this fragrance. So it's interesting how the note pyramid doesn't list a leather note, but I did get the leather immediately the first time that I tested this, and I found it very interesting that she described her dream involving the three things: the sea urchin with the lemon and leather. So despite there not being an actual leather note in the note listing, they actually created the leather that was the inspiration or part of the inspiration behind the fragrance. It's a very nice contrast between notes. I really like this one. It reminds me a little bit of Les Indemodables Musc di Sable, the way that fragrance has a simplicity, but it's really not simple in many ways. So I really like this one, and I'm considering a full bottle of this one. So this is Sogno Reale. So now let's talk about Rituale, which is in the Odori d'Anima collection, which is Sense of the Soul. And Rituale basically translates to ritual. This is so intoxicating. This is a fruity floral fragrance that has this syrupy consistency and almost something that comes off boozy to my nose, and this beautiful syrupy warm sweetness that comes from the beeswax in here. It's absolutely delicious without being overly gourmand, without being overly floral, without being overly fruity. So there is a sweetness in here, and it comes from the beeswax, and maybe it comes a little bit from the fruity notes. I am not a huge fan of fruity floral fragrances, but the fruits in here are so juicy, so tart. You have this black currant, you have this raspberry, you have this pomegranate, and the fruits are so juicy. At the same time, they're a little tart. You get a little greenness and you get a little muskiness, but the sweetness is kind of muddled and it almost comes off a little tart and green. So it's never a juvenile, fruity, sweet fragrance. There's something that comes off to my nose as nutty, like a nutty, chewy note in here. There are no nuts listed in the note pyramid, but there is something that I feel comes off a little nutty, and the consistency is a little syrupy with this beeswax that gives almost a hay-like component to the fragrance. So it does have sweetness that subsides as it dries down. When I first tested this, just to be completely honest and transparent, when I first tested this, I was thinking, oh boy, this is going to be an overly sweet, fruity, floral, sticky, gourmandy fragrance. I don't like super sweet fragrances. My taste has completely changed. It depends what your taste is. But the sweetness in here is definitely a warm sweetness. It doesn't come off sugary, but at the outset, it's definitely stronger than when it starts to dry down. And I found that I loved the fragrance more and more as it dried down. And together with these red fruits, you also have some floral touches. You have jasmine, you have narcissus flower in here, and you also have some rose. But the florals are not super prominent to my nose. I feel like they're playing their role against these fruity notes, and they peek through. And then you have this musky component to it and this sandalwood that really grounds the fragrance and is a nice interplay with these fruity and floral notes. And that beeswax almost gives a hay-like component to the fragrance, and you have the sweetness that's warm, and it definitely subsides when it dries down. I have the dry down here, and it comes off much more dusty, and the fruit sort of subsides, and you have this dusty, fruity floral fragrance with these specks of this beeswax that gives a warmth and almost a syrupy consistency to the fragrance. So I really like Rituale. I've been enjoying it from the testing that I've done, and I have probably another 3 wears from this decant. So I will keep on enjoying Sogno Reale as well as Rituale, and then decide. I'm really tempted to order both. They're both really different, and I have nothing in my collection that smell like either of these. Very creative and unique fragrances. They would be unique in my collection, at least. So now let's move to the last one, which is Orlo. So Orlo was released in 2020, and not only is it part of the Odori d'Anima collection, it's also within that collection part of a trilogy. So Orlo is really nice and very interesting. It opens up very citrusy. I get a lot of citrus in the opening, and then right behind the citrus notes, I get this juicy peach, and there's this nice contrast with this citrus and this juicy peach note in here. And then the florals start to come through. There's magnolia, there's rose, there's orange blossom. I do get hints of that orange blossom as well as that rose, but they're not fully present because you have this citrus fruity aspect that's still sort of lingering as these florals come through. Despite this fruit and these florals, the fragrance comes off very aromatic. So I feel like the other notes are sort of enveloped in this aromatic aspect of the fragrance. There are a lot of woody notes in here, and there's no sweetness. I don't detect anything that's sweet. So although I'm describing peach and the floral notes, this is nothing like Rituale, which is a completely different fragrance in a different category. This one is very aromatic, and this is 100% unisex, as is Sogno Reale and Rituale. I did not mention that when I was talking about the other two. They're all super unisex. Maybe Rituale, maybe I would say that it opens up a little more feminine because of the fruity floral type of scent profile that it has. But as it dries down, I think that it's unisex. This, maybe to some women, leans a little masculine. There are a lot of woody notes in here. I think about 4. There's Indian papyrus wood oil, Indonesian patchouli oil, Virginian cedarwood oil, cashmere wood, and there's Egyptian cumin oil. So you have these spices. It's super aromatic. It almost comes off like an incense of aromas that surrounds these slight floral touches in the fragrance, and this peach note that comes off really juicy. And it's about the only amount of sweetness that you'll get from that peach, which is not a super sweet, if that makes any sense. So while Orlo is nice, and I appreciate it for what it is, an aromatic woody fragrance with floral touches, almost comes off musky like incense with this peach note, and has this vibrant nature to it. It's probably not something that I would be interested in. I don't find it as unique as Sogno Reale and Rituale, but nonetheless, I appreciate it for what it is. It is a nice fragrance as well. So I'm really glad that I discovered this house. I'm going to continue to wear Sogno Reale and Rituale until I decide whether one or both turn into full bottles in my collection. I know there are a few others that have been popular from this house, so maybe I'll get my nose on those as well, or discovery set. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments whether you're familiar with this house or the fragrances that I spoke about in today's video, or whether there are others from the house that you think I should get my nose on. As always, I appreciate your comments and your support. Until next time, bye guys.